When it comes to a content strategy, we have to start thinking bigger than a content calendar. A content strategy is so much more than a content calendar. When you do a content strategy right, it's going to help you generate more traffic, more leads, and it's going to help you convert those leads into customers and clients, which ultimately generates more sales for your online business. In today's video, I have a really special framework to share with you. It works for any online business, but it's the content strategy framework that I use to develop content strategies for my digital health clients. As you may know, I own a healthcare copywriting and content marketing company called Stock Rose Creative, and I create content strategies and develop the actual content for digital health companies and private practice healthcare providers. To create those content strategies, I use a framework called the 5C framework, which I am going to share with you today. But first, if you have not yet checked out the previous 2 videos in the Content Pro series, have a look at those first, and then come back and we'll get into the 5C framework. In the comments, help me get a feel for where you are with your content strategy. Have you used a content strategy before? Have you created one for yourself or hired someone to create a content strategy for your online business? Let me know in the comments. By the way, I'm Multipassionate Meg. I'm a public health pharmacist, entrepreneur, copywriter, and podcaster, and I help fellow multi-passionate millennials find focus using content strategy so that you can finally start and grow your profitable business. If this sounds like something you are interested in, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you know when I'm back in these YouTube streets, which by the way is every Sunday at 1 p.m. All right, I want you to remember that a content strategy is not the only aspect of content marketing, but it is the first. So it's really important to get it right. Let's start with the 5C framework. In order to make this framework work for you, you need to be as thorough as possible with every piece of the framework. That way you have all the information you need to build out an accurate and effective content strategy for your online business. So let's get into the C's. The first C is your customer or your client. Depending on whether you offer a product or a service, you might have a customer or you might have a client. Either way, there are certain things that you want to find out about that customer or that client, the one that you really want to purchase your service or your product. You want to know all about their demographics. That's the makeup of who they are and what they look like. When you think about demographics, consider things like their biological sex, their gender, their race, their age, their geographic location, their family size, their socioeconomic status, their education level, their political affiliations, their community involvement, their employment status, their insurance status. There are all types of characteristics related to demographics that you can find out about your ideal customers or clients, and that information is going to help make sure that you are tailoring your content to that very specific person. After you consider the demographics, you don't want to stop there. If you stop at demographics, you have missed a whole section of your ideal customer or client that's going to be very relevant to whether or not your content resonates with them. In addition to the demographics, you have to also look at the psychographics. The psychographics tell you what a person values, what they believe in, and what they think about the world. You want to know how your target customer or client thinks so that you can influence that thought process. So as far as psychographics go, you want to think about what they love, what they enjoy doing, what they hate, what their morals are, what they believe about certain topics that are related to your product or service. What do they teach their children? What do they want to accomplish in their lifetimes? What do they believe their life's purpose is? I'm talking about like deep questions. So if you think of demographic as the surface level, the psychographics gets internal, and you need to be able to flesh out the answers to those questions in order to build out a content strategy that speaks directly to that person. When you are creating your ideal customer in your mind, it really helps to get that information down on paper. So this is why you might hear some people talking about building a target avatar or a customer avatar. It's literally creating a person and defining what each of those characteristics of that person is or are or whatever. You get what I'm trying to say? Defining who that person is so that when you are creating your content, you're not creating it for a sea full of people. You're not creating it for all of Instagram or all of TikTok or all of whoever. You're creating it for that one particular person. And that makes sure that when that person, your ideal client or customer, comes across your content online, they recognize immediately that this is for me. This is not for everybody else. This is for me. And so I am automatically paying attention to what you have to say because I'm like, girl, like, are you reading my mind? Are you in my house? How do you know all these things about me? But when you grab people's attention in that way, it tells them that you acknowledge them, you understand them, you respect them, you care about them, and that makes them want to buy from you. So you need to be as specific as possible when you are developing your customer or your client. Also, another side note, it's perfectly okay to have more than one customer avatar. I recommend starting with one if you are at the very beginning stages of growing your business, but it is okay to have multiple. You just want to be very specific about which pieces of content are directed to which customer avatar. The next C is your competition, and I'm going to give a disclaimer here, but I'll give it at the end of this section. Your competition, and yes, you do have competition, no matter how internally you think about competition. Oh, ain't nobody seeing me. My only competition is me. Okay, if you're in business, you do have competition. That is a fact, and you have to accept that. So in creating your content strategy, you want to look at your competition, not to copy them, not to bite them, but to figure out what is working for the space that you are in. And your competition, by the way, is anyone who has the same or a similar audience as you and offers them the same or a similar product or service. So you want to look at what types of content are they creating and what is performing best. Are they doing blog posts? Are they doing awesome video tutorials? Are they doing podcast episodes or guest posts in popular magazines? Look at their content and see what's getting a lot of engagement. If you use a website called BuzzSumo, BuzzSumo, that's a really helpful website for kind of investigating other websites that are your competitors. So you can see what types of keywords they're ranking for, what types of content is performing best in Google search or on Pinterest, on Facebook, on Twitter. You also want to look at your competitors' positioning. What is the thing that they claim to do that is better than? This is helpful for the next step, which is more about you, but understanding what your competitors do really well is going to be really helpful for figuring out how you can differentiate yourself from them in the market. Now for that disclaimer, I want you to be really careful with this competition step. It's very easy for me to do this for my digital health clients because I'm an external person and I'm not like married to that company. It's not my baby. I'm not emotionally invested in that company. But when you're dealing with your own company and you're looking at your competition, it can be very easy to be discouraged if it so happens that your competitors have been in the game for much longer than you have and have built up more of a community and are getting more sales and are just overall bigger than you are. It can be very discouraging if we're being quite honest. And so I want you to try to make sure that you are not comparing yourself too much to the competition as you are investigating this for your content strategy. Get the information you need and get the hell on. Don't linger around on their profiles. Don't do that. You already know what I'm talking about. I don't have to break this down for you. You know what I'm talking about. Don't do that because you will only discourage yourself. So I beg of you, do not get discouraged. Do not get stuck in comparison mode and do not let their perceived progress affect your resolve to commit to your business because this is your journey and that's theirs. And their journey is none of your business, except when you're using it to investigate what types of content are performing best for them, okay? And then move the hell on, do what you need to do. Promise me, point to promise, point to promise. After you look externally at your competition, you need to look internally at your core expertise. Core expertise is the third C of this 5C framework. The questions you want to focus on here are all about your business and your authority in this particular space. So what are your products and services and what makes them so great? What is your value proposition? How are you positioned differently from or better than others in your market? What about your product or service should make someone want to purchase it rather than purchasing someone else's? That's called your unique value proposition. Also, what are your credibility markers? How do people know that you're legit? Now, this doesn't mean that you need to have a degree in whatever in order to be qualified to sell X, Y, or Z. This does not mean that you have to have spent tens or thousands of dollars on some program that gives you a certification and allows you to sell or teach X, Y, or Z. This means that you need to look internally and figure out what about what you are offering makes you either an authority figure in it. It just has to be one step ahead of the person that you are selling the product or service to. You don't have to be at the top of the top. You just need to be a couple of steps ahead of the person that you're selling to. And how can you demonstrate that? Or if you are approaching this from the perspective of, I'm not an expert, but I am going through this journey and I want to share with you what I have learned along the way and offer this information to you in exchange. If that's your take on it, then make sure that you are conveying that as well, because people consider that an area of authority also. If you are demonstrating your journey and just helping them along the way, that's also a form of authority in your space. So figure out where you land in that space and what your credibility markers are. Have you sold this product or service to someone before? What are the great things that they said about it? What are the positive things that other people say about what you're selling? If you've done this work for free before, what are the great outcomes that you've helped someone else achieve? The fourth C is your calendar. Are there specific events or holidays that are relevant to your online business, your service, or your product? Think about national holidays, but also smaller scale holidays like those social media holidays. They could be really great times to anchor the content that you are creating depending on what type of product or service you're offering. Also think about conferences, meetings, like big things in your industry that people would be more attuned to, and how you might be able to create content that is specific to those conferences or meeting times. So that's your calendar. And then the fifth C, you already know what it's going to be. It's your content. And in this case, I'm talking about everything that is downstream from the strategy. So if you remember in this video, I mentioned that content marketing is a 6-step process: strategy, planning, creation, distribution, promotion, repurposing, and also you have to do some evaluation. So we could say it's a 7-step process, but in this particular framework, the 5th C is content that is downstream from strategy. So how are you going to plan, create, distribute, promote, repurpose, and evaluate your content? That's what we need to be considering when we are developing our content strategies. So you'll need to think about your content format. How are you going to deliver your content? Is it going to be written, audio? You're going to do a podcast, a blog, a YouTube channel? How are you going to deliver that content? And then how are you going to distribute it? Are you going to let people know via social media? Are you going to have an email list? Are you going to do paid ads? How are you going to promote that content? And then around the actual creation of the content, what types of topics are you going to cover in your content? I want to take a pause here because this is actually going to be the subject of next week's video. Next week, we are going to dive into what type of content you should create. And we're going to talk specifically about choosing a format, choosing a platform, and figuring out how to find topic ideas for that content. So make sure you subscribe so that you know when that video is available and you can get started figuring out those things for your own business. Once you have all the information for the 5C framework fleshed out, you will then populate that information into a content strategy template so that when it's time for you to actually create content, you can easily refer back to your strategy document and make sure that all 5 of those C's are covered in excruciating detail. If you want to see how I lay out my content strategy, I am more than happy to show that to you. I don't know if that's something that you would find beneficial. If so, let me know in the comments and I can make a video about that and actually create a template that I can share with you all too. So let me know if that's something you would like. I will see you guys next week as we talk about what kind of content you should be creating for your business.